Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right, well, good to see you all. Before we just jump into it, it's always nice to ask if we have any questions. Rumor has it there might be one ready and available. You have a question, Chris. All right.
So, I've been, listening to you speak and this idea of sentience and sentient beings. And I know like a lot of it's pretty clear when, plants versus animals, but anything that avoids, there's a lot of like one-celled organisms that avoid things that threaten stuff. You might say they might experience pain or discomfort. So I'm just wondering, like, how do you differentiate? How do you define sentience?
Yeah.
Where's it cut off?
And in case all of you online didn't hear that, just to repeat it, the question is, we use the term a lot, all sentient beings sort of conscious beings. And so you'll hear in our prayers, may we dedicate all of our merit for all sentient beings. And so the question here is, well, how do you differentiate sentient beings? Plants, we're talking about animals and so forth. And that actually has been a question of mine for a long time. I finally got the answer, yeah, from a Buddhist perspective, it's going to be different, right? Because there is consciousness in plants, and that's proven. And actually, I think that heart math even got like yogurt, to have response, so there is consciousness, there is responsiveness. And so when in Buddhism, they're talking about sentient beings, they're talking beings of the 6 realms of existence. So that's going to have animals, but not plants. Going to have, they have these 6 realms sort of human, heaven realms, hell realms, animals. And so within that sort of realm of conditioned existence. And which wouldn't include plants, but they're not saying they're not conscious. What they're saying is they're just not in the 6 realms. And so Jetsuma Tenzabha is in Ojai at that teaching. It was sort of like, I had been wondering this for years, like, why aren't they included? And it's just that essentially they're out of those 6 realms. So they're not, they're just not in the same continuum that we are. And so it's not that maybe they don't even need help, I don't know. But they're just not in that framework. And so within a Buddhist perspective, when we're talking about sentient beings, they're not denying they have consciousness, but they're talking about beings on a continuum with Buddha nature that have either whether we call it the Buddha potential or actual Buddha nature, that's your nature. And you're seeing yourself in this form, in this cycle of existence.
Okay, so let me ask you just a little follow-up question.
Okay.
So insects.
Yep.
Do they have Buddha nature?
Buddha nature, insects.
And so then I think I know how this is going to play out, but like, how does an insect get positive enough karma to move up where it can eventually receive the Dharma?
Man, they got to do all the teaching just like you and do their prostrations and. Yeah. Yeah, they can prostrate a lot, right? I think. No, essentially, so continuum of consciousness that within the Buddhist view is that I'm in this body now. I'm experiencing this body dies. My consciousness continues, and it just starts seeing itself differently, right? And normally it goes into sort of a little sort of spirity realm, they call it the bardos. Technical, we're in one now, but the bardos, it's usually called. And then a birth takes place and we start seeing ourselves differently. Okay, maybe an insect, maybe in a nicer realm, maybe human, might find myself with 4 legs wanting to chase cars. I don't know. But the idea is that that continuum of consciousness starts seeing itself differently based on the karma and based on the conditions. The thing about all of this is it's temporary. So at some point, human karma is going to run out. Likewise, if I was an insect, that karma would end, and then a new birth would take place. So maybe that next one would be in a human. And of all 6 realms, the preferred realm, the most optimum realm, is the human realm. And the reason is the lower realms, it's going to be very hard to engage in practice. It's going to be hard if you're an insect. It's going to be hard if you're a deer to do a lot of practice. Hell realms and hungry ghost realms, things like that. And those aren't places, okay? Those aren't places. People can be suffering in a hell realm in a human body. It could be in a war zone right now. You can see the struggles that so many people have, sex trafficking. I mean, you could be in a hell realm in a human body. It's not like you're going to some spirit place. And so based on the karma and the conditions, those all change. And so then there's an opportunity then for that Buddha nature to ripen in a human realm, and especially specifically a rare and precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice, which is not all humans. It's a small little group, all of which you're in. We have just enough suffering to want to change, and just enough leisure and opportunity to have the facilities for it. They would even say heaven realms are, they're pleasant, they're wonderful, lots of good stuff. But there's so much, there's not enough suffering to really do any inner work. And so we're in this just right balance that we can be struggling enough, but have the resources to indulge in some time and leisure. What we call leisure, it doesn't mean we're hanging around leisure. It means we have space. We're not trying to survive every moment. So there's 18 specific qualities of a rare and precious human birth, and that is the optimum. Now, this is very temporary. We're going to die at some point. And so the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma really emphasize the qualities of a rare and precious human birth, its opportunity right now, and we're going to die. So the analogy, if we want to freak people out, which I kind of like to do sometimes, is how often someone gets a human birth favorable to Dharma practice, what we call a rare and precious human birth. The analogy they use is that if a sea turtle comes up in the ocean once every 100 years to poke its head up, and it was a yoke, like an ox yoke that goes around its neck, just floating on the ocean, that the sea turtle that comes up once this 100 years would come up at the same time that yoke is floating. That's how often we're thinking eons, we're thinking, we know there's more universes than the one we're in. We know, of all that a rare and precious human birth, manifests for us. So that kind of gets your attention. Okay, it's all happened. We have the complete path. It's all here. I'm not an insect. I'm in a human form. I can read, write. I have capacity. The Dharma teachings are here. All of that's still not a human life, a rare and precious human life. Because a lot of people have that. But not enough people have enough suffering and struggle that tried to get some clarity, that had some opening to a spiritual path. And I'm not even talking just Buddhists, just, any spiritual path that's going to take them. If we look around at over 8 billion humans, we're at over 8 billion now. Wow, humans. How many are spending their Wednesday evening or Thursday evening really trying to understand themselves, their experience, and really develop those qualities in a path that's legitimately beneficial in that way, whether it's Buddhist or something else? Small percentage. And so taking that in mind, it's all here now. Won't be here that long. And the whole path of freedom and liberation is right here. Tends to get your attention. And so there's the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma are the rare and precious life, impermanence, karma, the sort of way things work out, and then a realization of our current situation, our conditioned existence. And people do that every morning to remind themselves so they don't waste this day. Will.
So there's 6 realms.
Yeah.
And that suggests a progression of states of enlightenment.
Not exactly. So again, those of you online will get to you, Roxana. The way of conditioned existence is that I'm conditioned, right? How I'm going to see you is subjective, right? And these realms are sort of states of experience. So everything's sort of coming from just that perspective. That now I can be in sort of a heaven realm, but that's not closer to enlightenment. That's actually less. But in a karmic world, it's conditioned with cause and effect. It's pretty good, you know. So basically saying, if I'm a kind person, a generous person, I've been a helpful person, you're going to get rewarded, you know. And it's not that anyone's rewarding you; it's just kind of the way it works out. And you know, we notice that if we're more kind and generous, we have more peace of mind, right? And so just in the order of things, you know, you're going to get, you know, the results, but not necessarily any realization. So there's a lot of people with great resources that have very few problems, that have good health, and are enjoying life on a really wonderful scale. They're really kind, they're helpful, but they may not be at all in a spiritual journey. Yeah.
Another comment I was going to make, it was like, I mean, insects probably don't get caught in real suffering like we do, like caught up in the future and the past.
Right. They don't have, insects don't have all that cognitive worry and fear generally until you go after them. What's that called? Fly swat. Yeah. Haven't seen one of those in years. Roxana. Oops. Sorry, I clicked ask to unmute right when you were unmuting. So I'll let you unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me
There
now?
you go. Yep.
Okay. In recent weeks, there's been conversation about doing no harm, especially as it relates to animals and what we eat and that kind of thing. And I just wanted to share that in 1975, I lived in Boulder, and I had already studied yoga, the yamas and niyamas, the ethics of yoga, and the Eightfold Path. And I was working at a vegetarian restaurant, and I was also working at a macrobiotic restaurant and studying macrobiotics. And the idea about macrobiotics is that you eat what's in season in your location, whatever your location is. And the reality is, if you live in Alaska or Siberia or Scandinavia or Japan or Korea, chances are you're going to be eating seafood or meat of some sort, because there aren't very many plants that are living in frozen areas, that kind of thing. And also, people wear clothing items made out of leather, like shoes, boots, and maybe wallets and belts, that kind of thing. And also, if you have a garden, chances are you're going to kill some insects in that garden. Or if you are purchasing things from a grocery store, they're going to be insects and who knows what that get killed by tires that are bringing the food to your grocery store, or, you know, where you're walking or where you're riding a bike. It's like, I don't think it's possible to be alive and not do some kind of damage to some kind of critter along the way.
Uh-huh.
So I think that it's important for people to have compassion for themselves, number one, for however they may have lived their lives along the way. But also to recognize that this is one reason why we do purifications. And I saw a clip of the Dalai Lama the other day where he was saying, you know, if someone is threatening danger, it's possible to shoot them, but shoot them in the leg, shoot them in a non-vital location, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And so there's the idea that it's all relative, but that we can do purifications for whatever harm we may have done to any critter anywhere, you know?
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing, your main point here is that people can sometimes get hard on themselves and a bit rigid around, you know, any acts of harm that they've done, and you're kind of giving some context, I think, is what being shared. Yeah. Yeah. There's often this sort of black-white, you know, conversation that, you know, well, you can't eat vegetable without harming, you know, insects. So why be a vegetarian? Well, and it's kind of like, well, you could probably do less harm. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I could do less harm. So the fact that I can't be perfect doesn't mean you can't do a little better, right? And really, that's the journey. It's in the situations we find ourselves in, you know, what's the least harm we can do, and what's the best way we can promote sustainability. And we have a sustainability teacher in the room, and community, and so, you know, and how do we promote health and well-being, and it's Holiness in the, you know, this next section of the book really talks about you know, the detrimental aspects of despair and hopelessness, and how those just are not helpful. So I've noticed in my life I do a lot less harm than I used to, and the choices around vegetarian options a lot better for me than they used to be. I mean, look at, right now I actually have a lot more options now, right? The Tibetans up in Tibet, you know, very difficult climate to be a vegetarian, but a lot of them ate sampa, which is barley flour, and butter tea, you know, and but, you know, they had yak meat and stuff. The monks at my monastery eat meat. The monastery does not feed them meat because they're in India. They're not in Tibet. We're in India. Guess what? India is one of the biggest vegetarian, you know, places we can do that. No problem. But there'll still be some monks who will cook up a little meat, you know. And so we need to, I think, from our own perspective, see with my physical, because some people's physical being is very difficult to, you know, actually live without a little bit of meat, right? And then if somebody's going to do meat, well, you know, am I going to do the big agribusiness? Or am I going to do like a local raised, you know, meat? And even watch this really interesting documentary on sustainability and how people eat meat. I didn't realize that it was Muslims that needed meat that was cared for in a nurturing way and killed in a very kind way, in a very specific way. And they actually negotiated, this was like in the Midwest somewhere, with guys like to provide meat for this community, but they would need to treat their animals differently and take care of them differently, and when it was time to kill them in a very specific way. And you know good old boys in there, you know, y'all mean we need to do what now? And but they gathered around the the kitchen table and they explained it, and then then they worked with them on that, and they actually honored the animal and did that thing in the best way. The Native Americans, of course, have prayers, and the advice often is, if like I've been fed meat when I was a monk, and when you're a monk, you eat what's offered. And then I'm just going to have a vision, instead of freaking out, just, this animal's dead. Let me use this nourishment to be a benefit to others. Let me have whatever benefit of karmic imprints, be a result of this being that is now, providing life to me, that it has a good life, and have a real honoring of that. So, just I think what Roxanne is sharing is, we need to be in the situation we're in and do as little harm as possible, and make the healthiest choices that that promote life, and be reasonable about that. And then the other continuum to know about is, for example, there's a lot of Tibetans that could only be there, but now they live in India, so now they have different resources. We live in a different time where it's much easier. Lots of places Laura and I just traveled to, all kinds of veggie stuff. So maybe at one point in my life, due to karma and conditioning, that wasn't much of an option, and now it is. And I think what I'm hearing Roxanne say is, don't beat yourself up for your past. That was just part of the conditions. That's what we knew. So hopefully I honored what you were sharing, Roxana.
And I think it's important for us to honor other people who are in circumstances where they have to eat meat, like Tibetans, in environments where that's pretty much all there is available, at least in the wintertime, that kind of thing. So to not beat ourselves up, but to also not beat up other people.
Hopefully we're not beating up other people, period. We're not better than anyone else. The whole, essence of this teaching is to recognize we all have Buddha nature. We're all in a prison in some way, shape, or form. And just because my prison's a little better than yours doesn't make me any better than you. It makes me a little more fortunate at that. Remember that with all others. So I guess you guys have had some rich discussions around virtue and non-virtuous actions the last couple of weeks. Okay. Yeah. But I would encourage, and it's very clear that wherever we can not kill, wherever we can make a different choice, wherever we can get a different type of employment that does less harm, right livelihood and those types of things, moving in those directions as much as possible is really going to be incredibly beneficial.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Anyone else with any thoughts on that, or things that came up in the last couple of weeks? All right. Yeah, this is one that people, you can hit a wall. If you West, you wrestle with this and alcohol, meat and alcohol. It's like, wait a minute, I got to do what? And so the dharmas, and the ways that are being taught here are just, there's no judgment, right? There's no judgment. When the Buddha is talking about these 10 virtuous and 10 non-virtuous actions, he just basically had noted, well, this is just the way it works, okay? Engage in these harmful actions, you're going to have some things to pay. You engage in these virtuous actions, there's going to be more pleasurable experience, better conditions. And it's just the way it works. It's not judgmental. And the word virtuous or non-virtuous is not even a very good descriptor. A lot of times people use wholesome or beneficial activities or not so beneficial. I mean, that's probably a really good way of approaching it. These are more beneficial. These not so beneficial and actually harmful. And there's a price to pay, and it just kind of plays out. But everyone is redeemable. And we need to understand that whatever we've done, we've been acculturated to and been conditioned to. And now, you know, as we have new opportunities, we just kind of keep moving in a direction that's meaningful. Okay, so having said that, let me pop up the text. I think we might get in at least a little main point here. We're at a good state of mind. So that's previously, we talked about how to work with afflictions. The last bit of time, where I believe last week, was really talking about how do we now really grow and nurture the seeds of, you know, just healthy mental states, compassion, loving kindness. You know, it's not always playing defense. You know, it's like, oh, you know what? I don't need to just pick weeds all day. I can grow flowers. And so this section is really about putting in the practice to water, nurture, and grow the thoughts, the attitudes that you would like to have in your life. And I'll just read this little intro, and we'll touch base on that. A good state of mind. The calmer our mind, the easier it will be to deal with problems. Rather than wait for a crisis and then search for a way to handle it, we should practice open-mindedness and kindness on a daily basis. Then, when problems or even traumatic events occur, their impact will be less severe, and we'll be able to return to a balanced state of mind more quickly. On the other hand, if we indulge our bad moods, we'll feel overwhelmed when even small unpleasant events occur. Tibetans have a motto: hope for the best and prepare for the worst. The main preparation is to let go of the self-centered attitude that magnifies our own problems and to cultivate compassion for ourselves and others. When difficulties arise, looking at them from a broad perspective is useful. Concentrating on my problems brings more frustration and unhappiness. While collecting, is that the right word there?
Recollecting.
Thank you. Is that next sentence sure didn't make okay. While recollecting that everyone faces difficulties, puts mine in perspective. In addition, if we see difficult circumstances as a challenge to rise to our own potential and as an opportunity to call forth our compassion, we'll be more effective in managing a stressful situation and contributing something useful to it. In this way, our life will be worthwhile and our mind will be relaxed and open. So His Holiness is given a few opportunities here. Making some time when we're not suffering is going to be key. And I think therein lies one of the biggest missed opportunities, I think, in certainly this modern world that we live in. When we're in a good state of mind, we're generally then distracted or doing something luxurious or, you know, or enjoying, you know, we're not doing spiritual growth. And then there's enough pain. Oh, you know what? I'm going to work on myself. Hey, what's going on? Let me call the therapist. Let me, you know, go do something. And then I'm okay. So, okay, well, you know, let's plan a trip. Let's, you know, think about what to eat tonight. Let's, you know, and, you know. And so when we're in this more, when we're not in struggle, that's actually the best time that you can be planting and growing patience and tolerance, compassion, reflecting on just the interdependent nature of things, how supported we are, what's going on. the thought right now, here we are, wherever you're seated, we got the Grand Junction crew, we got people all over here, and got some people in New York. We're here, we're in buildings, we can walk and talk, and how we got here, how we got here. Did we walk? Did both our feet work? Did our legs work? Who built these buildings? We have warmth. Where did that come from? The wonder and awe of, the shirt that I put on, and, where it came from, and how many people got employment from that process, and the words that I get to use, and how I can actually use my voice, and I can speak, and who taught me. And, if I'm paying attention, I'm going to recognize that I am supported, like, at a level I can't even comprehend, every single moment of my life, due to the efforts of countless others, of humans I've never met, of animals I've never seen, are providing me a life. And what if I kind of paid attention to that in my meal, and in my walk to work, or in these other times? Well, just becoming aware of this very interdependent and completely supported life that I have. What if I cultivated contentment and gratitude instead of desire? Like, oh, got a little time. Yeah, where would you like to go next summer? And all of a sudden I'm like not enjoying where I am. Not enjoying where I am. It's amazing. Now I'm creating want instead of contentment. And so there's this vast amount of time in our lives where nothing's a problem, that we could be acclimating our mind to perspective, contentment, awareness, gratitude, just the abundance that we already have. I mean, if I can't be happy with what I have now, what in the world makes me think that this next thing is going to do the trick? It's my mind. It's the self-centeredness, the clinging, the grasping, the wanting to arrange things to make me feel good. And he's saying, well, let's stop that. How about you recognize that there is no independent you, and we're all in this together, and what a gift it is that people have helped us. I get to help people, and maybe have someone over to dinner, maybe invite some friends, go to dinner, communicate, connect. How do I share this journey? What's meaningful? And then what's happening is, as this whole section in this book here is working with that kind of frame of mind of when we're doing most of our life, we're not in a crisis. And there's a lot of opportunity there to bring perspective and clarity to my day, and water and nurture and appreciate people. So, example, a very simple practice of seeing others as an old dear friend, right? Anyone you meet, just they're an old dear friend. A lot of time about life-changing way of living. It's going to change that interaction right then. And it's going to make me more adaptable to someone doing something harmful. Because, okay, how would I interact with a dear friend who's doing this? How can I deal with this in a sense of connection, instead of they are just the worst person on earth, right? Now they're a human being who is very afflicted, and now I can work with that. I'm going to suffer less. Immediately you're going to suffer less. The mind that list that he's going to go through here. Let me pop that back up. Fear, depression, struggles with acceptance, comparing ourselves with others, and disagreements, conflict. These are things that all arise, and they're all going to arise in relation to me and you. Fear, despair, my comparing myself with others, and what if we started actually on purpose, cultivating and recognizing that you're already enough, you're already at Buddha nature, you're okay. And yeah, I got some afflictions, but do I really have them, or do I experience them? Wait a minute, maybe I'm experiencing this frustration, this fear, this insecurity. And then, wow, that's not going to last. But it's not to suppress, it's to fully experience, to really let yourself experience and feel and notice, but not identify or exaggerate that, I'm going to be lonely forever. I'm sure we've all been lonely, right? Or experienced loneliness. And then it felt like I'll never find anyone. My friend, he's a Zen teacher. He does it so much better than me, but I'm going to try and do it because it's his experience. He'd been married for a long time, and they just tried to make it work. They tried to make it work way too long, and they cared about each other, and finally, they divorced in a really mindful, caring way, and healthy, and she moved away, and then he's by himself, and initially it's like, it's good, and it's reconnecting with his friends, going to meetings, doing things, and helping others, and he had all this sense of fulfillment, and he came home from a meeting with friends, and then he sits on the bed, and the TV comes on, and it's that show they used to watch. Oh, we used to watch this together. I'm so lonely. Oh, I'm so I'm never gonna find it. Just this loneliness. He gets all into it too. He's just, oh, poor me, I'm so lonely and I don't have her. Oh, and I remembered an hour ago he wasn't lonely. An hour ago he was, fulfilled. And for his comments, don't buy the lie, it was triggered, obviously, something they shared together, and it arose. And what he was able to do to shift was to recognize and embrace that the experience of loneliness and the care that he really had for his ex-wife, and to be able to really allow himself to just feel a little sad for a little bit. Today he's married to a whole nother woman. He has, great life. She's married to someone. They both have wonderful lives. But in that moment, I think we can all identify with what that feels like. The future's bleak. This is never going to work out. It might be loneliness. It might be my job. It might be, the situation with my family. And it's this huge thing in a moment. And when you're in it, right? We're in a refractory period. We don't have a lot of options. And this whole section here is saying, well, those times are going to come. Okay. But if you start when you are not in those moments, cultivating these qualities of contentment, perspective, connection, understanding, experiencing these range of emotions, seeing other people, getting outside of me and mine, and get much more into we and ours. And we might even recognize that if I get cancer, I'm not the only one with cancer. There's, millions of other people with cancer. This is what happens. This is life. This is the things that we do. There's a resiliency when it's not me focused. And when it's me focused in a way that's unrealistic and wanting the world to be different than it is, I'll negate how incredible my life has already been. Right? I think we're doing pretty good, right? Think of all the wonderful experiences you've had, the care that you've received, the places you've gotten to see, and all that can be nothing in a moment. Nothing. But if I practice daily with this reality perspective, reality, nothing Pollyanna, and recognize how supportive, how fortunate, how my life's meaningful, then no matter what happens, there's going to be more resiliency, more context. And then ultimately, there may be nothing to fear, which doesn't mean fear won't arise. It means that when it comes, I'm capable. I'm capable. And so taking some time to recognize how capable we are, how fortunate we are, how I like to use that Facebook statistic that I got because that's where I get all my facts. This one's accurate. Okay. It's not where I get all my facts. Let's just see if you're paying attention. But it says, when you're struggling, when you're going through real challenges, just remember your success rate's 100% to this point. You have lived through every single challenge you've ever had in your life. And that's a pretty good statistic, 100%. I think, wow, how we can throw that out the window and think I'm not capable to walk through the next thing. Or not good enough, or whatever it is. And so in this section, it's really working with developing on a daily basis this real rich recognition of our interdependence, of perspective in our lives, of these practices of cultivating contentment, awareness, and connection instead of independence. I heard someone coughing. Is someone seeking to share something? Okay.
There's a hand.
There is a hand somewhere in here. I'm skimming through.
All right.
Okay, I can pull up this and I'll find it. Not seeing a hand at the moment.
Shelley's not muted.
That's right. We got that. Okay.
There's a hand down
There is a hand somewhere.
bottom right.
You're supposed to go to the top. Oh. Well, you're not seeing my screen. I'm sorry. You're seeing everybody else. I have a totally different screen because we're recording.
Right.
So those of you listening to the podcast, Rachel will probably cut this part out. Hopefully. So somewhere is a hand. Somebody give me a name.
I think it's the hand of the cursor on this computer. I don't think it's a hand of someone
No, okay.
with their video.
Gotcha.
Is it different?
Well, I hope it's handy.
It's a
Okay.
white hand in the lower right corner.
Alright. Okay, we solved that mystery. So I know we're already a little after 7, and the what I would encourage those of you who have the text, I mean, this section, I don't think there's going to need, there's not much need for me to elaborate other than the emphasis is to be working with perspective and clarity daily, right? But he's going to get to this section, and this is where I was hoping to get to tonight. And I'll show you. And it's going to get right to the essence. So he's going to go through these different variations, and all of them are going to point out there's a healthier side and an unhealthier side to these qualities. There's an interesting, But here is where we want to get to: survival of the most cooperative. Okay, which is very different than survival of the fittest. And here is going to be this opportunity to really recognize how we can thrive in the recognition of the support we already have, that we're a part of this experience with others, and the meaning and purpose of all that, instead of the very self-centered island trying to get the world to be the way you want it to be. That's not going to be a winner there, just not. And to give a real just great example, I got this from Tenzin Priyadarshi, Venerable Tenzin Priyadarshi. It was very simple. He said, the more you think about yourself, the more you suffer, period. And he said, you, and like everybody's in there, the teaching, just start paying attention to yourself seated in that chair right now. Just start feeling your body, start feeling the chair, just start focusing on you. And sure enough, chair's uncomfortable, I need to stretch, I need to scream, this, it's like, this gets uncomfortable. But I was in the chair paying attention to him. I'm not on me. I can sit here a long time. But if I start noticing, the bench and my knee and the this and the that, and now I'm suffering when I think about, just me and mine instead of we and ours. Instantly, there's me, and then there's a whole world of stuff to try to manage instead of this thing that's unfolding to support me in cultivating a path that's meaningful, and that everything's an opportunity to grow, learn, to be helpful, to have purpose. To navigate, to adapt, to understand, to experience, to purify. I mean, wow, that's a very different mindset. And in this big picture of whatever life I've already had, wow, that is so much better than most human beings. I mean, most of us, we're in that top, I think it's 8%, I think sort of your common Western lifestyle person, pretty amazing. And yet I could get frustrated because my latte's not properly served. I really couldn't, but people do. People do. But you get the thing. We can, just over these little things. I've been getting fascinated with just if I have to re-click and recopy that thing I just did on the computer. Really, it's just a few click motions, and it's amazing what we might find ourselves irritated by, unless we wake up every day and recognize here's a day that won't ever come again in my life, and I am incredibly supported at all times, clothes, food, oxygen, the people that are kind enough to stop at a red light. Wow, the words, the knowledge I have, just every aspect of my life, I have been supported in countless ways, and to have, like Helen Keller would say, this is an adventure that we're on. What kind of attitude is that? And see others as old dear friends, kind of in this prison of samsara together, and working with their issues, and I'm working with mine. Well, wow, what a resilient mind I have, what a different way of engaging in life. And we could be doing that every day instead of watching Netflix. Not to say that watching Netflix is not bad. I actually watched, it wasn't Netflix, it was, I watched the Willow series. I'm a Willow fan. People are looking at me like, Willow, it's a fantasy thing, little guy who's a sorcerer, when Mad Mardigan and Beth Moore, anyway. Apparently they did a part 2, a little series, and I didn't know about it. I was very excited. So in my travels on the plane, I downloaded Willow series. Midway, I was kind of, really, is this worth it? Towards the end, it was like, oh yeah. It's like interesting to start. Midway, it's like, is this thing, I could be doing other things. And then towards the end, I was like, oh yeah. Let's go, come on, we got this. And that part is, that we really need to have a practice that's nurturing, fulfilling, enjoyable, and we are in a human experience. So having time out to watch a movie or something like that is not a bad thing. But wow, what a thing to know that an opportunity, even that, that we have time, and can we invite friends, or what can we share about this? Or maybe I just need a break. I need a break to unplug. I've been too tight. If my practice is forceful and I'm, just hyper vigilant on every misstep or every uncompassionate word, we're getting nowhere. There's nothing compassionate about it. But if I'm recognizing that every opportunity is something to grow, to learn, then, I'm on the right track. And sometimes I get what do they call it? Binge, right? Binge. There's like a COVID thing, like Netflix and a movie binge or something. Binge-worthy, a binge-worthy experience where people unplug for a little bit. Those are fine, tight, forceful, not very helpful. But at some point, and what Katsuma, points out is those things just become less interesting as these other things become more fulfilling. The time with your children, the people you're in front of and talking to at the moment, just the incredible wonder of this day that won't come again. Is it worth being distracted or present? It just becomes gradually a lot more rewarding and interesting instead of forcing it too much, and so what I would encourage is everyone to go through and if you we'll get to that section. I'll pop that up again. Survival of the most cooperative. So I'm going to encourage people to read up to this point if you have the text, and if you have any questions about His Holiness, and what he's doing is giving you really wonderful antidotes, perspective things, but talking about, reading about it, really not going to make any difference. I mean, we just not. Doing it, well, that'll change your life. You can sum all that up with, what if I just saw every person I meet as an old dear friend and recognize they're all contributing to life I have? That would be an incredible practice right there. And it's going to reduce fear, and it's going to reduce, comparing and all that. So I encourage you to read that section up to that point, and next Wednesday we'll start here at this survival, not of the fittest, but of cooperation. Okay, and let's go ahead and dedicate the merit that we've already cultivated in our time together. It's nice to take a moment to recognize just how rare and precious these moments are. As we mentioned, there's over 8 billion humans. So few with any opportunity and freedom and access to even seek out knowledge or spiritual paths. We have all of this available. We have met with teachings that have been cultivated through centuries. People have practiced these, people have memorized these, people have achieved these states they talk about and have offered their lives through practice to be a benefit to others. All this has come to fruition for us. And we've taken the time on a Wednesday evening to gather together to support each other in a path of understanding ourselves and our experience, cultivating compassion and kindness, to wanting to be as helpful as we can. That's incredible. And our times really require that type of mind to break through so many afflictions. So let us dedicate this merit that we have cultivated from our time together for the benefit of all sentient beings. May they recognize the Buddha nature. May they be free of their afflictions. And may we be able to use the wisdom and teachings we've accumulated through our whole life, not just in these teachings, so much wisdom that we've cultivated. And we can use this to recognize that we're already okay. That we're already okay, that we are capable. And to wake up to this ultimate nature. That we can be of total benefit to all sentient beings. And let us dedicate By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare, Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare, Tu Re Soha.